Hi, everyone. Welcome to Craft Politics. I'm Joseph Lavoie.
I'm Andrew Percy.
And I'm Holly Mumby-Croft.
Welcome back, guys. How's your week?
Good.
Andrew, you're back in London, yeah?
Yeah, there's a tube strike. Turns out that Labour didn't sort everything out. All we needed was the adults in charge. Turns out the doctors are still on strike, and so is the tube, except for the whole freaking week, and the DLR. So
Hasn't been too much of an issue in gorgeous North Lincolnshire. It's been fine. We've barely been touched by the tube strikes at all. Been very lucky.
You've continued to get around just fine then. I have had to use bikes everywhere, and not all of them were electronic bikes. So I've had to use my thighs.
Are we going to talk about your experience on bikes?
Well, I did have, Joseph, you won't know this, but I may have, on the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, fallen off a bike by...
It's easily done, isn't it? I mean, you literally forgot to put your feet down, right?
I literally forgot to put my feet down. I turned up at a junction and then didn't put my feet down and just went like this with an electric bike. And the girl next to me said, "Are you okay?" And I suggested what happened. I was like, "Oh, I forgot to put my feet down."
See, this is how things get expanded. I had heard a version of the story where you're on a tricycle and you fell off a tricycle. No,
I fell off a bike again, but not a tricycle. I don't know why. Why would I be on a tricycle? I'm not like, I don't think I need stabilizers. I can ride a bike, but you probably like, I don't know what you do. You probably got like some, what's that thing where they do like 5 things at once? Ironman things. What is it? Like the triathlon. That's it. You'll be a triathlon thing with your bike and all that nonsense.
We've got to keep the heart in good shape. Speaking of keeping the heart in good shape, what are you guys drinking? We have on tap in the office. This is Burdock Helles Munich Lager. So it's one of my favorite lager styles, and Burdock is one of my favorite breweries in Toronto. So I was so happy when I walked in the office today and saw that we had it on tap. So no can to show, but
you're going to be so proud of me. I have genuinely been to a shop and bought a can of beer just to kind of help you guys out of this section. It's brewed in the UK and it's called an American IPA.
IPA.
Good, she's
IPA.
I've got a glass as well.
Let me translate for our Canadian audience. That's an IPA.
I know. I'm just pulling your leg. I know. It's an Indian pale ale, right? I know these things.
What's the brewery though?
It's called Vocation Brewery.
Oh, I know Vocation Brewing.
I'm going to open it. I'll do your sound effect for you so you can use this. I'll pour some in a glass.
I'm also on
what's it called? An ASMR video now as I pour this in the cup.
Are we all meant to talk slowly into the microphone? Holly is like pouring the beer.
Tap it with my fingers. It smells nice. It smells like beer.
Smells.
Is it supposed to have this much white stuff on the top?
The white stuff
like
is what we call head.
50-50, I would say, white and beer.
You want a nice thick head, Holly. That's part of the sensory experience.
I'll try it.
What are you drinking,
Andrew?
Andrew?
It tastes like beer. It's nice and it's quite refreshing. It's nice.
Hoppy.
Tastes good.
Crisp.
Yeah, crisp and hoppy. Crisp and hoppy.
Crisp and hoppy. Good. It's like, this is like, you are a master sommelier. What's it when you're not when you do beer and not wine? It's not
a Cicerone.
Didn't you go on a course for it?
I did my studies. I did my studies for the Cicerone.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
We'll just pick it up as we go along. I think it'll be fine. Are you proud of me?
Yeah, I'm very proud.
I'm very proud of you. Be awesome.
I want to know where you bought it. Which garage?
M&S.
Yes, of course it was M&S.
I went to Marks and Spencer's with my mum, so I've got to go buy a can of beer.
Every conversation with Holly generally begins and ends with, "I'm just leaving M&S," or "I was just in M&S. And when I was in M&S, somebody asked me, when I was in M&S, somebody said this. The M&S in Scunthorpe survived solely on the basis of Holly's patronage.
Yeah, they genuinely do think I live there. They're very kind to me. They're very nice.
Well,
and they sell beer, which is wonderful. Very, very foreign experience as Canadians who have to go to separate shops in most provinces.
You can't buy beer in a supermarket in Canada.
God forbid.
I don't know that.
It's like communism. I'm on a Buxton brewery, Axe Edge, which is also an IPA. So it's a UK brewery.
Nice. Is it West Coast IPA? East Coast?
No,
somewhere in between?
It's from Derbyshire, so it's in the middle of the country. It's a Midlands IPA.
So whose beer is better out of mine and yours? Would mine be better then?
Well, we'll have to check the ratings. We'll check the ratings and feedback next week.
Yeah. Or we could do that at the end of the show when we do our tasting notes. All right. Now, Holly, you said you had a Rubik's Cube handy in case this got boring. We risk now if we keep talking about beer, making it extremely boring for many of our listeners. So let's get into the issue scan.
I hope you don't think that was rude. I'm sure it'll be not boring at all.
Okay, so let's get into it. We'll start in the UK again this week. So lipstick on a gerbil story last week has resulted in Deputy Prime Minister Rayner resigning. Now, some people have said Angela Rayner stepped down because we made this our lipstick on a gerbil segment last week. Can't confirm or deny this, but what is true is that she has resigned as of September 5th after the UK Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor concluded that she breached the ministerial code by underpaying stamp duty on her $800,000 flat in Hove.
Pounds, what? Pounds?
Pounds, sorry, pounds, yeah. So even
Canadian
more money.
dollars, like 1.9 million or something.
Yeah. Or $10 billion because the valuation is so poor. And then, of course, the Prime Minister had to respond with a mini shuffle. David Lammy moved to Deputy PM, Yvette Cooper to Foreign Secretary, Shamana Mahmood to Home Secretary, and Rayner also stepped down as Labour's deputy leader. Guys, why does this story matter, other than it shows how prescient we were last week?
Well, okay, I mean, obviously Angela Rayner was, I don't know whether this reference might be lost on you, but she was kind of supposed to be the John Prescott equivalent. John Prescott to Tony Blair, Angela Rayner is supposed to be the John Prescott to Keir Starmer. They're kind of like northern, working class, antidote to London lawyer Sir Keir, and, keeping the Labour Party has to be kept in balance. So, she's a big loss. And, but there's also rumours of not a great relationship between the two of them. So it is always better to have your enemies closer. That's why I do this podcast with you, Joseph. And rather than on the outside, pretty weak enemy, it's kind of like taking on Liechtenstein or something. The better to have them inside than out. So the party is now kind of out of balance. It was perceived very much to be a reshuffle of the right of the Labour Party. But I think the bigger thing, perhaps Ollie will agree on this, it's just like, it's another example of it just seems the continuing chaos of British politics, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, all this working class stuff that was coming out a lot over the last week was just really winding people up. Yeah. We went out for coffee over the weekend. There was two guys who were sat near us, broadcasting. So I was listening really hard. And they were just absolutely sick to death of it. They've completely had enough. And the interesting thing was, what was kind of the output of it was that they're fed up with all mainstream politicians in this country. They weren't saying Labour, Labour, Labour. It was just MPs, this politicians, that we all got chucked into this massive bucket of MPs, and then all that was left was, as they kept calling him, old Nige, and they're just waiting for this reform party to come through, and they're desperate for an election, and they were sitting there speculating about when they can have an election. So this is damaging, actually, not just for the Labour Party, but for all mainstream parties in the UK, because people are just sick to death of the upheaval and the churn all the time.
Because there's been so much of that, right, since the pandemic. I mean, sort of the dying days of the government you guys were in was felt scandal-ridden.
Interestingly, I went into Parliament last night because I was got some friends, and spoke to a political journo there who raised a really interesting idea with me, quite an alarming one, really. He said, look, he doesn't think this government can succeed because it just can't, right, in the current its backbenchers are impossible to manage. What needs doing it won't do. We said we'll either then have a reform government, possibly. He said they will come in and possibly not be able to do what they want because they'll have institutional pushback, they won't have the experience. He said I do actually worry about where the country will be if we've had three failed governments, of three different parties, because arguably the last parliament was a fairly messy one under the Conservatives. This one's messy, the next one could be. So I really worry about where the country. But I hadn't thought about it in that concept of idea of, because at the moment we all think one election cycle, right? So I'm just thinking what does it mean for the next cycle? But actually, if it is reform, what does it mean for the one after that if they can't solve some of these problems? Because we're spending too much money, we're taking too much in tax, people are demanding everything to stay the same. Huge issues with immigration, much of which can't be solved because how do you stop people just getting here illegally? It seems to be an impossible thing to get hold of. So anyway, but I suppose the other point here is ordinarily the government collapses, has this big mess like it's got at the moment. Normally it's the opposition who benefit, but that doesn't seem to be the case with Kemi Bain, not the Conservative leader. We don't seem, it's reform, as Holly said, it's reform who benefit from all of this disorder.
And these two
because
guys
reform
who
at
were
the moment
were saying 2027 for the election. So let's wait and see. I don't know where they're getting their information, but that's what they reckoned.
We'll see. I mean, they've got a big majority of the government's not going to collapse. The only time there'll be an election is when they choose to call it, right? Between now and the deadline for this parliament. But It's been very, very messy. It turns out I saw a couple of cabinet ministers who'd been removed last night when I was hanging around. And I just kind of wanted to go up to a couple of them. I did say hello to a few and just said, best of luck. But I kind of wanted to go to them. Turns out this governing thing's pretty hard, isn't it? Not quite as simple as just, throwing a load of stuff saying the Tories are evil, we'll do a better job, the adults are in charge. Turns out being in government's pretty shit and pretty difficult.
Or even the reshuffle will be really, really difficult for Keir Starmer because, you and I know MPs are just people, and it's worth remembering that they're just people. Some of them are really quite stupid. Some of them are like this big chunk in the middle are distinctly sort of average, which is where Andrew would probably have sat. And then there's like this bit at the top where they're absolute geniuses, where obviously I would have been. But it's really hard because he's got to lay that capability stuff over who the parliamentary party are going to accept. You don't want people who are going to outperform you, but you do need people who are competent and capable and are able to run the departments. And there's all that kind of background stuff, which we would have been part of, sitting in the tea room and having those conversations. And some people, it annoys you if they get promoted. Some people you don't mind. Some people you think they should. All of this is really disruptive for the parliamentary party with a majority that's so massive that it's actually hard to keep hold of, harder in some ways than if it was a smaller majority.
There's also the 1% at the top who we would refer to as delusional, and maybe you could but no, you're absolutely right though. I mean, and there was actually one of the sacked ministers was quoted as saying, which is, again, this is why I love British politics. It's a bit more interesting because everyone briefs against everybody compared to Canadian politics. And the quote in the paper was, "I will F Keir Starmer up," said sacked Labour minister. People don't like being fired, turns out.
Oh, they get really, really angry. And then they go and join their mates and make life hard.
They don't like being fired. They, and especially don't like seeing other people do well.
Well, I want to move on to our next issue, but first, just a last question on this one for the two of you. From my perspective from the outside, it seems like Labour's had a miserable first year and change in office. It's been a miserable start to sort of the autumn period, not the fall period, sorry. And, I've seen some perspectives out there that this is a good reset, that finally Starmer's going to be able to change a channel on all of this. I don't buy that analysis because I just feel like once if you can't survive your honeymoon, if you can't take advantage of your honeymoon period, and if by the time you're in this position 13, 14, 15 months into governing, I think people's impressions of you are long formed by now. And what's the impression they're getting right now in media? Or you're still not effective. You're still having to make changes to your core team. Everyone's in some type of scandal or just ineffective. I just don't what proof is there at this point that any change is going to be a good change at this point?
They'll be looking at the polling as well. And they'll be thinking about their future careers and their jobs. And, there's some very, very genuine, decent MPs in the Labour Party, and they will be worrying about the areas that they represent, and they'll be genuinely concerned about all the issues that Andrew covered, and they will not be happy.
And I think, look, it's definitely a reshuffle that has it was very much Keir Starmer's reshuffle, Morgan McSweeney, his senior advisor. Yes, you can argue he's got control. He's got more of the people he wants in the positions he wanted. But the other side of that, the flip side of it is you also have a lot of pissed off people now. But actually, the more important thing here is it's not really about the personalities, right? It's about the fundamentals haven't changed, right? The country's running a massive deficit. The tax burden is very high. The huge black hole in the public finances. And he has a restless backbench that won't allow him to do the things that you really have to do at the moment, which is to reduce spending and to probably tackle some of the benefits bill issues and, a whole series of other things that government just can't keep doing in the same way. You've got the Chancellor in Germany saying the same thing, the outgoing French Prime Minister saying the same thing. And he can't really change any of those things because he's got the same problem with his backbenchers, and he's got Reform who are breathing down his neck from this kind of populist right thing, which is also we might spend more money on some things, which is not usually what you face. So I just don't think it really changes a good idea. Yes, as of yesterday, he's probably stronger in the sense of he's picked his people he wants, but overall nothing's really changed because the fundamentals.
And they're straight into this deputy leadership election that's going to take them right to the end of September and then on into October to get a result. So that will cause a lot of attention to be taken by that. And distraction.
And if it is if the membership vote for, which is possibly the likelier outcome, a seemingly left-wing candidate who's from outside of ministerial office or cabinet, and that will be seen as a mass rejection by the membership potentially. Now they've tried to distill the nomination period down to like 3 days to keep people up, but there's already a far left candidate from the backbenchers running, and we'll see. I mean, Bridget Phillipson's running from the cabinet; she's education secretary. If she wins, that will be a non-story, but it's potentially like a hard left candidate wins, and then what do you do with them? Because they have the position, but do you give them a job in government? I mean, so anyway, it's messy, but it just turns out, as I say, things aren't as simple as possible. It wasn't just because the Tories were evil that these problems weren't being addressed. It's because the root problems for so much of the issues we have in the West are so deep and so complex that, it's not just about having the will to want to do something about it.
Well, we're seeing that play out in our next two issues, really, but we'll start in Canada. In Canada, latest numbers are out, and we are definitely feeling some economic blues. So let me walk our listeners through some of the numbers. So the August labor force survey shows unemployment at 7.1%. That's the highest since 2016, if you exclude pandemic era. Youth unemployment is sitting at 14.5%. This report came out right after the second quarter GDP numbers came out. So GDP fell 0.4% quarter over quarter, or 1.6% on an annualized basis. That's driven by a 7.5% plunge in exports. Most starkly, a massive decline. We're looking at a 25% drop for passenger vehicles. No surprise where that's coming from, of course, U.S. tariffs.
US, yeah.
Ontario, BC, and Alberta posted the largest job declines across in August, and that's scary when you think about those. Ontario, BC, and Alberta are some of our largest economies, regional economies in this country. So incredibly discouraging news to see that they are experiencing this pain point. And of course, also of note, not a direct response to this data, but Prime Minister Carney was out bringing to an end the original EV mandates, or at least putting those on ice. EV being electrical vehicles, while announcing $5 billion for industries that have been hit by tariffs. So the economy in Canada is feeling a lot of pain. So is the US one, but we're not making that our issue of the week. And so solving this economic challenge is not easy, and you're not going to be able to fix that in a couple quarters. And so why all this matters, of course, is that this mix, so you got soft jobs numbers, GDP numbers being hit by trade, I think is tightening the political vice on affordability. And that is going to be, I think, the issue matrix. When you look 4, 5, 6 months out here in Canada, we're still very consumed right now by U.S. tariffs. And we'll have a conversation with Ginny Roth later this week on this topic and what that means for the Conservatives. But from my perspective, we are seeing now that the economy is hurting. That means people are going to be hurting. And I think that means the issues that people are going to be most responsive to sooner rather than later are going to be ones around affordability and pocketbook issues. In other words, what's old is new again. What do you guys think of that?
Well, if you didn't need a beer before, after that depressing, you should go into...
Did you see I got my Rubik's Cube out about halfway through?
I was like, Jesus. I was like... This rattling on, isn't he? Here, I thought, what?
I reckon he's clever. He's got a lot of facts and figures up there.
He's got a lot of facts. He's got a lot of numbers in his head, hasn't he? He's got a lot of numbers in his head. Hear me prattling on there with all this depressing talk. Well, thanks for that, Joseph. It's just like, it's also, you don't realize it's getting a bit dark here now in the UK. So this is like, it's like even the atmosphere responded to that negativity. So I don't know, Joseph. It sounds like things are pretty shit.
Yeah.
You guys hear this then? Like, Joseph, if you go out for coffee with friends, or Andrew, if you go out on your own for a coffee, like, do you hear all the people at other tables like talking about this? Like, is it properly a topic of conversation in anything like the depth of understanding that you've got, or how does it feel?
That's such a good question. I don't think with the depth of understanding, there's no one certainly spitting back at me GDP numbers, quarter over quarter changes. Now, it could be the nature of being in the community that I live in Canada. Vancouver, Metro Vancouver region is notoriously expensive, and so it is
Everyone
impossible to have
all the time.
And it's always the biggest complaint, right? It's two things actually. What I constantly hear is fuck, life is expensive here. I don't know how anyone can afford it. Combined with, holy crap, we have a lot of new people coming to our community and we are not equipped to handle that. And this has remained true in the last couple of months. And yeah, everyone wants to talk about Donald Trump and tariffs, and there's a reaction to that. But I think things are starting to normalize to a, fine, the new normal is Trump and tariffs and that insanity. That's not going to change over the next 4 years. Let's start focusing on our own stuff, what we can do here. And yeah, cost of living, I think, is top of mind for a lot of people. Oh, sorry, there's a third issue, crime. Crime is increasingly becoming a problem in Canada that people are seized by.
Because I always think what people talk about at the same time in the same conversation is really interesting, and whether there's a link in their mind between those issues.
Yeah. And I think there's, it's funny because I had one of our former colleagues who's still in Parliament here rang me up on Saturday, and we got into talking about why immigration is now an issue. And he said to me, in 2005, the Tories here in the UK went into the election with a 30-point lead on immigration. Everybody basically agreed with our policy. It was supposedly in polling the third-ish biggest issue to the public, and yet they didn't vote on that, or second or third, whatever it was, and they didn't vote on it because people don't generally vote on immigration. But his conclusion, which was one I shared, was the reason it is now an issue is because people very definitely are linking immigration to the affordability stuff, because it seems to have an impact on your housing now. People make that link much more. I mean, people always did in the past, but maybe it wasn't believable. But now people feel that it's having an impact on that. It's having an impact on the jobs market. Why are you not getting paid as much? A whole range of other things on schooling and everything is having this impact. So actually, that issue has the affordability thing now is also an immigration issue. Maybe it's a crime thing as well. Maybe the immigration thing fits into some of the crime stuff. Certainly in the UK, where there's been a lot of focus around the immigration issue, is not just the fact it's costing a load of money, but actually there's been some crime examples and all the rest of it, which seem to be, so all these things are kind of like colluding together now. And when you feel like your pocket is at risk, you are more likely to believe these things as well, that there's other reasons. So I think I don't know. I mean, I think affordability it's always, elections generally always come down to how people feel about their own financial situation, right? And the uniqueness in Canada, perhaps not uniqueness, but the strange thing about the election this year in Canada was simply that because Trump just loomed large over everything, the government should have lost on affordability alone. It didn't do it, got away with it, but none of those things have changed. The fundamentals have not changed, right? And that's an opportunity for anybody who's not the government.
Yeah, I have a
So
friend
is there any buyer's remorse in Canada now? Do people still feel the same? No.
Polls are still fairly even, not too different, 2 or 3 points either way, which seems to suggest, because maybe that's just, we're getting into that identity politics of I'm in this block or I'm in that block. And even if I hate the stuff that my block's doing, I can never be in that block. And that seems to be kind of like where Western democracies are going, which is why all these attacks on the other have minimal impacts, right? Because everyone thought on Trump, like, it's what Farage is finding, right? The more people attack him, doesn't really matter because the block that's with him because there's nowhere else to go, maybe.
But going back to what you said earlier, projecting forward over another election cycle, say in the UK, when you run out of blocks to be in, because every block you've been in has let you down in your perception, where do you go? What do you do?
Well, are we then into more violent things? We don't know, right? This is where this journal last night was saying to me that I worry about civil disobedience and, civil order if in, another 5-6 years' time we've changed government and it's still not working. Where do the public go?
Yeah. Well, all eyes are going to be on the Bank of Canada's September 17th decision on interest rates. The last time they were held at 2 3/4 points, that last decision being July 30th. So we'll have to see how it responds to these numbers and what that means. Let's move on to our third and final issue, because it's all related now at this point. It's connected. France, it's the same issue we talked about last week, but there's been a twist. And so
we're really bad to people's careers, right? We talk about these issues and then the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK resigns and the French Prime Minister gets voted out.
Well, yes, as we predicted, September 8th would be a difficult day for the Prime Minister. And as we are recording, so this is all late breaking, Macron has named Sébastien Lecornu as France's new prime minister. How would you pronounce that, Andrew, with your
Well,
accent?
I couldn't tell because your French pronunciation is so awful. It was like, I don't know what he said. I mean, he's just...
Do you want him to do it in French or Yorkshire?
Yorkshire.
We could have both. Let's have both.
I did order on the phone to somebody who's Spanish recently was listening in, and I ordered dulce de leche for my donuts. I'll have a dulce de leche donut, which apparently is not how you say it. Anyway, so...
Anyways...
The new Prime Minister of France is not called Dulce de Leche, right? Just to be clear.
To be clear.
Confused. What's he called again?
Insightful. We can make this into a little Facebook clip. People are really going to want to hear you try to pronounce this. It's good. It's good.
So what's the Prime Minister called? The new Prime Minister who's been named?
Sébastien Lecornu.
Ah, Sébastien Lecornu.
That was good. That was good.
Je le connais.
Sébastien Lecornu.
Nous sommes amis.
Well, he was the defense minister, and he's now the 4th prime minister in as many years. He's 39, the youngest defense minister at the time, and
he's our age.
He's a former conservative who joined the Macron centrist movement in 2017, has held posts on local authorities, has done work overseas.
Okay, we don't need to know what school he went to. We get the picture.
Come on, I'll get my Rubik's Cube out again.
He's size 7 feet. He's a 32 waist. His inside leg is 30. Anyway, so we get the question. They got a new fella.
Yeah.
It's probably
is
not
it really worth us getting to know him, or is he going to be here long enough that it's worth us putting in the investment here? I don't know.
This is true.
I did see a thing in the newspaper here said that it's all reversing to type, which was when they used to say that tourists come to London to see the changing of the guard and to Paris to see the changing of the government, which I thought was quite a good way. I mean, I don't see how this changes any of the fundamentals in France, right? Because again, it's you've got the Mélenchon's bloc on the left, you have the right bloc, Le Pen's bloc, and then you have this whatever's left of the remnants in the middle. And just what needs to be done in France, as we've talked about just a moment ago, in Canada, in the UK, debt to GDP is so much worse in France than even in the UK and many other Western countries. When you have two populist blocks, I keep putting my hands over here, but then I realize no one can see them, so I need to put them here. When you have two populist blocks, how are you going to ever have a stable government? So I don't know where this ends.
And in exactly the same way, fundamentals remain exactly the same. There's a different person, but the problems are exactly the same. The views on it are probably exactly the same. It's a really nasty medicine they're trying to get everyone to take. No one wants to be the one to give it to them.
The solution's the same. So you can change nurse, but, it doesn't matter, right? It's still the same medicines.
This story interests me, though, because France it's the number 2 economy, right, in the Eurozone. Like, if it can't get its shit together and quickly, then I have to assume that there's spillover effects in the rest of Europe. And that gets us into a whole other larger issues. I mean, there's a little bit of an interest for us to, well, not for us, but...
Oh, totally. I mean, we could, there is a risk that, I mean, that's a Telegraph, I think, here ran a really good piece on this the other day, which said that, is France about to set off another 2008 financial crash? Yeah. Because, if France ends up in in the position it could very well, if it's, unable to sustain its debts and have a functioning government, then we could end up in a, very, very dangerous place, which will, France catches a cold, we'll catch we'll all fall ill. So it's really, really quite concerning. But what is the solution? Because both of those blocks on the left and the right know that they benefit from the instability.
And some of the same themes you raised earlier, Percy, or that your friend raised with you, I think are going to be just as true in France, which is like this government's now struggling. We're going to head, is the next government going to be able to actually truly deal with this problem? Because it is such a dose of really untasty medicine. And what kind of revolt is that going to create? And so you look out on an 8-year sort of forecast basis, and it is looking like shit in the UK. It's looking like shit in France. Maybe it doesn't quite look like shit yet in Canada. Maybe there's a chance still that Prime Minister Carney can fix some things up for us. But it is looking fucking miserable out there.
Yeah, it really is. And I think as well, we notice here what people talk to us around, like when you're in the country, Andrew, people probably speak to you about it. When people in other countries are starting to have conversations about France, which I've had 2 this week, that just like kind of on that really soft level explains to me the real seriousness of this and that people are understanding that we're only slightly less in the shit than they are. And I think people are really grasping that here. They really are.
Yep, no, totally. That we could have contagion, right? This is really, really dangerous for the world economy. And, and again, they're like thinking about the broader global politics of it all. The only people who benefit from all of this instability and all of this problem are the people who don't share our values in the world.
Yes.
But we have this disconnect where our electorates are unable to accept some of the solutions that are required, and then politicians who offer them can't win. Like, there's no doubt in the past, right, when politicians were able to make a case for difficult solutions, even if it was unpopular, there seemed to be an understanding by part of the electorate that it had to be done. Now, because people see stuff on social media and the way that, it's a bit like we talked about last week in the interview with this attention economy thing, it's impossible to actually make that case that, you have to go through this pain because there's a better tomorrow. Whereas now people are like, no, I don't. Make them pay. They should pay. And,
well, also because it's all your fault. Sorry, guys, you've been in power. You're the one with access to the purse strings. You're supposed to fix this thing. And so why should I feel the pain for your inability to solve it? I think is also it's creating that whiplash effect.
Well, no need to be rude.
It's right, though. I mean, the sheer volume of opinions and stuff that you get on social media all the time almost leaves no space to have a think about it for people.
Yeah, because we also know that a lot of the narratives that's being pushed out is being pushed out online by other countries and, actors who, are deliberately stirring this stuff. So it's all very, very depressing. Anyway, can we just not be?
Well, let's move on from the depressing stuff and have some fun.
So depressing.
No, I got to tell you that I really, really enjoyed the interview with Andrew McDonough. It was great. It was really good. Well, I've got to take some slight issue though, just for 2 seconds, because Andrew was on about his nostalgia clips and how much he was being reminded of his childhood. Literally, you were a teacher teaching at a school in the 1980s. There's no way you were still a child in the 1980s. That's been annoying me all week.
I was only saying the 80s to be nice to Joseph, because when you have a Gen Xer on, you have to be like, I was just trying to be like,
driving a car, going to work, probably bought your first house. Come on.
If I was driving a car, I was probably driving it badly, as you know, with my records. So
yeah.
How many times have you had a driving test?
Well, I've failed 5 times. So, but
really good that you kept trying.
You're great. As great in a car as you're on a bicycle or a tricycle, aren't you?
The worst one was when the instructor actually stopped the test. But anyway, because apparently something I did was dangerous.
Instructor wanted to preserve his own life. All right, let's move on to our not lipstick on a pig. Is it lipstick on a gerbil? Are we sticking with that, or are we going to call it something else?
A new animal this week. What should we go with?
Oh, I've got 2 gerbils in the room next door. I thought we were going to stick with gerbil. Genuinely, I have. I just remembered after we got off the call, we've got 2 gerbils. It'd be so cool if we could have brought them in to appear.
Well, then maybe we just stick with lipstick on a gerbil.
With gerbils now.
Yeah,
we stick with that, I think.
If you bring them in next week and put lipstick on them, though, that could be problematic. So don't do that. I think
we think they might be immortal because they're so old and they're so hale and hearty and thriving. We think they might be.
Maybe
immortal.
We create a little casino-style wheel that they run on, and they get a vote on how many coats of lipstick.
So no, we got to stick with gerbils, I think.
You should call one of them Joseph, and then
their names are Nibbler and Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi.
One of them bites. So you clever pair of boys. You can probably work out which.
Definitely Bon Jovi. Right, play this clip.
I'm gonna play us a clip, but before I press play, just to buy me some time as I do the screen share thing, Holly, do you want to provide the context for the clip for our listeners?
I would love to if I knew which one you'd chosen. Is it the one about the mayor getting paid lots? Because if it is, I can do that.
That's the one. That's the one.
Okay, this is Nigel Farage. He went on to, I think it was Laura Kuenssberg, to talk about the Reform Conference, presumably. And she asked him about a mayor in a town in Yorkshire called Scarborough who's had I think 600% pay rise. So really interesting to listen how Nigel responds to that.
Scarborough Town Council, which has given
no idea.
Well, I can tell you.
No idea.
Well, I can tell you what's happened there, and I can ask you whether you think this is the right thing to do. Scarborough Town Council has given its reform mayor a 600% pay rise.
I have no idea.
You don't know?
Whether what you say is true or not, I have no idea.
So is that the right thing to do in principle?
I have no idea. It's a town council, 600%. What's it from sort of
It's a small amount, so a payment of £500 up to £3,500, which I know
Well,
you're
I don't know. Is he doing it or she doing it as a full-time job? I've no idea.
But in principle, is that the right thing to do?
What we could do is just get multimillionaires to stand as candidates everywhere. And indeed, our Doge team are doing the work unpaid, right? If people have got resources and want to do it for free, that's great. I don't know the Scarborough circumstances.
What about Scarborough Town Council, which is given
no idea.
Well,
I should
Andrew,
probably
why
take
don't
this
you?
because no, I should take this because only one of Andrew and I has actually been a town mayor. Unfortunately for Andrew, he was never asked. We don't know why, but for whatever reason, that honour was not bestowed upon him. Look, this is a really interesting way to do it and quite different to what we saw last week. It's basically just like, I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about this. I don't know. It's the kind of the bat it away method. Are we going to see the end of Nigel Farage's career this week, having been featured on Lipstick on a Gerbil? Definitely not. I think I gave 2 last week. This has got to be worth a 2 as well. He just did not seem to be worried about this. And I think that confidence came over pretty well for him.
Yeah, I'm inclined to also give it 2 because, I mean, was it exceptional performance? No, I'm not going to give that a 3, but he does it in such a way, like I'm thinking about the average person that's watching this, particularly his base. Are they going to be worked up over this? I don't think so at all. And unlike last week's example, he actually comes off incredibly authentic in his response. Like he clearly is telling the journalist, I don't care about this issue. This is so small potatoes, not my message track. And I know Laura's an exceptional journalist, but it does seem like she's trying to deliberately create a gotcha moment, and he's not biting for it. He's not biting it. And I think she kind of looks a little bit like she was trying too hard.
Yeah, it just completely glances off him, doesn't it? And I think people will see that as being authentic. You're totally right. And actually, we've probably covered all of the major points on this. Is it worth asking Andrew what he thinks? I mean, he's here.
I've unmuted him because he seemed to be struggling to unmute himself.
Wow. I think, I actually think you should listen to me, Holly. I just think I agree with what you've said. I think if you hate Farage, you like, look at him, he can't answer the question. If you are, a reform Farage fan, you're just going to think, oh yeah, what's it matter? It's 500 quid to 3,500. He doesn't, it's not that important. I think like you could maybe do it a little bit better and just to mean like, well, we're talking £500, 3,500. Actually, let's talk about how much money has been spent on migrant hotels. Let's talk about the millions. Why aren't you asking me about that? Why aren't you asking me about, the money this government's wasting on this? This is some small town mayor, a small amount of money. I don't know anything about, but I just think like most people won't care. But whether it's a 2, I don't know, because I think he could have done a lot more. But yeah, it's a fair effort because they're just batting it away is I don't know. I think.
So are you giving it a 2 or a 1 or a 3?
I think give it a 1.5. It's like he did once and then like got a bit bored halfway, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just he's just so comfortable when it comes to communicating. Like he is not going to be given a gotcha moment by Scarborough.
Yeah,
Town
and it's the
Council's
authenticity around it, right? He's like, you just believe as a communicator, he's not gonna put lipstick on a pig. He's not gonna bullshit his way through it.
So, bold prediction for all 3 of us: the hike in the town council mayor of Scarborough's allowances is not going to cost Nigel Farage his job by the time we meet again next week.
Yeah,
I agree.
Bold.
I think he's safe for at least another week.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
The curse of craft politics has been broken.
All right, let's bring it in some tasting notes. How are your beers shaping up? Andrew?
It's fine. It's not my favorite beer. It's perfectly acceptable. If they're prepared to sponsor this podcast, then yes, but not my favorite, but perfectly fine.
Mine's okay. All that white stuff's gone now off the top. I suppose it's supposed to do that, is it? But it tastes good. It's nice. It would have been nicer if it was a bit colder. Because I brought it upstairs about an hour before we started recording it. It wasn't so cold. Should I put ice in it? Do you put ice in it? Andrew's going to cry soon. You're so upset, aren't you? Sorry.
This also
sounds like you don't.
This also sounds like a you problem rather than the beer's problem. I wish it was colder. Why aren't you colder? I mean, It's not the beer's fault. It's like, that may be your fault.
You go buy one of those neoprene, like, little jumpers that they wear to keep them cold. I get one of those.
Who's
Yeah.
on? That's very
good.
acceptable.
I'll do it.
What's yours like, Joseph?
Burdock makes great Helles lager. It's got everything you'd want, like super clear, nice and crisp, got a bit of a sweet note to it. The cereal malts are getting all the attention. It's making me extremely happy. Highly recommend it.
Good. Do you know what the most interesting thing about this is? Joseph was like, "Oh, I've only do like 10 minutes over time because they really need me on a meeting." Turns out they don't need him because we've gone a lot over.
Yeah, we've gone
and they
way
don't
over.
seem to be begging him to join the meeting. He apparently had to leave
Could it
early.
be
to be
possible
on.
that he was just trying to manage us a little bit?
Yeah,
He doesn't have a meeting at all. It's pretty
Yeah.
unusual to have a beer before you go to a meeting. I think we've rumbled him here.
We've had people who are better and bigger try to manage us, and it's never worked.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I'll try again next week. That is it for the show this week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
David, see you.